Hello, my name is Sarika,
And my name is Michael.
and this is Today in Years Past.
So, I have Lizzie McGuire stuck in my head. Because you and your cousins played it like a million times.
Yep, yeah.
So,
I have the next song after that stuck in my head.
what's the next song that was after that? I don't even remember.
Dolare do.
Oh, I don't know that one.
That's an Indian song.
That's fair. But it was fun. Well, welcome back to a second episode of Today in Years Past. My name is Michael,
My name is Sarika.
and today is June 18th. And so we're going to talk about June 18th.
Sounds good.
Do you want to take it off or?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. We'll start with Sarika. Actually, before we start,
Sure.
I want to. So, fun fact about June
Okay.
is it's the month with the longest daylight hours per year in the northern hemisphere.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it's Pride Month.
Hey, happy
So
Pride.
happy Pride Month.
Wait, is it because it's summer solstice this month?
I think so. I
Yeah.
think that is why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So yeah.
All right, fun fact.
So enjoy longer days while you
Love
listen
that.
to our fun little podcast.
Nice. Alrighty, well, we're gonna just ricochet way back to the 1800s. We're gonna go to 1847.
Wow, that's a long time ago. All right.
So on June 18th, 1847, Thomas Martin Easterly, he is believed to made the first photograph of a streak of lightning.
Oh, I remember you talking about this.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
Is so, you showed me I saw the picture. I don't
Yeah.
think you were actually showing it to me, but I happened to see it when you were doing research.
Right.
It was so cool.
Oh my god, no, it's so cool. I'll have to go put a picture on the Instagram, so definitely go and check that out once we do that. But yeah, it's really cool. It's super crisp actually for what the time and everything.
Yeah, 1846.
47.
Well, still like.
Yeah.
So back then they didn't have digital. Obviously, it wasn't digital, but like, was it? Are you going to talk about the camera? I don't
Yes.
want to spoil
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay, we can
Yeah.
get into it. I'm so excited.
So I was actually about to talk about this. So it's not actually a camera. It's called okay, I'm going to try this. I listened to a couple audio clips of what this is, but it's a daguerreotype. That's what it is.
That's a fun word. Okay.
So a daguerreotype. So the daguerreotype was basically, so imagine it's like a silver-coated copper plate that is covered in an iodine vapor, and it's made light sensitive. And so after you take a picture with the camera, the plate is developed using mercury vapor, and then it's fixed to a chemical, making the image permanent.
All of this sounds so dangerous for your lungs and
Oh
your
my god, yeah.
body in general.
Exactly. No, dude, it was like, I mean, insanely dangerous for the time. And
Yeah.
like, no, I wouldn't say, no, okay, retract that. But it was definitely not as safe as, cameras are today and everything. But it's just, it took a lot more time and there were a lot more chemicals involved. And so it inherently made things a little bit more dangerous. I don't know all of the health things about it, but
Well,
regardless.
I hear mercury and I'm immediately like,
Yeah.
oh, that's not good.
Not fantastic. But yeah, kind of jumping the gun a little bit. But so with Thomas Martin Easterly, in the mid 1800s, so 1847, he had pulled off something no one else had ever done before, photographing lightning. And so he didn't do it with anything like any digital camera, like I was saying, the daguerreotype. So just to give you a little bit of like grounding of where this is, the cameras that we know today were popularized in the early 1900s, like kind of or so. And so it was definitely later, like at least a century later, that the cameras that we know today were like starting to get developed.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so this was like one of the earliest types of photography, and it was basically using a piece of polished metal. So let me paint a picture for you. The summer of 1847 in St. Louis, Missouri, the city was growing super fast and the American frontier was pushing west. And St. Louis was kind of like the gateway to like the Midwest and like getting out there.
Okay.
And Easterly was living there and he was working as a photographer. And he was already pretty well known for his portrait work, but he was really getting into like science, like technology and photography, and it was just kind of like this melding of all of these things all together.
So photography existed back then.
In a different way than we know it today.
Okay.
Yeah.
But still though, like the fact that photography was even a relevant field to get into at that time, like that seems pretty cool.
Dude, right? Yeah.
I didn't realize how long photography was running, you know, like how long that's been in
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, no,
That's
totally.
cool.
Yeah, they were huge and bulky, and exposures could take about a couple minutes, and the chemicals were dangerous. So, you know, with all of that taken together, so. But anyways, but Easterly was curious, regardless of all of the aforementioned things. And he was always trying to push the limits for what the camera could do. And so one night during a thunderstorm, he tried to do something that only a few attempted. Because, like, folks had tried to do this before. Because it's just, like, I mean, lightning is super fascinating.
Yeah.
And so people have tried doing it before, but no one was ever successful. Especially with the daguerreotype, you would have to time it super well for it to actually work.
Yeah, and that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, it's lightning
I know.
out right now.
Yeah. It actually flashed a light whenever I said it.
I know, I saw that.
But yeah, he tried over 100 times to photograph lightning before he was successful.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I know, right? But yeah, no one thought it was possible because lightning is so fast and it literally lasts for a fraction of a second. But Easterly thought that if he timed it right, then, and if it was bright enough and everything basically lines up the way that it needs to, it could work. And so he set up his camera near a window, or I think outdoors. Not really sure about the specifics, but regardless, he waits and he got it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah. No, crazy. He managed to get a single streak of lightning, and it zigzagged through the sky, and it was the first time that ever happened in history.
I bet you he was just as excited as anybody who gets a picture of lightning.
Right.
Like, if I got a picture of lightning right now, I'd be like, oh my god, you gotta look at this.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was doing the same thing.
Oh my god, can you imagine?
He was probably so stoked.
Dude, right? Yeah. Well, because the daguerreotypes were around 50 cents to a couple dollars in that time. In
How
today's
much? Yeah, okay.
Nice. In today's equivalent, that's $15 to $100. So it really just depends on, like, I was doing a little bit of research, but the cost depends on many factors of, like, where do you live? Where are you in the community? Like, how well known are you? And then, like, can you get it directly from, like, the daguerreotype makers? And, like, how did that work exactly? But regardless, it cost a good chunk of money, and $15 isn't just $15 like we know it today. Like $15 or 50 cents to a few dollars back then was a good chunk of change. And so him doing this 100 times and then finally getting it, oh my god, I'm sure he was like jumping off that damn roof.
Oh, for sure.
Exactly.
I'd be jumping too, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's so cool.
But I mean, this was huge for that time because it was a moment where science, nature, and art basically all collided, and it stunned people because a lot of people were like, you're nuts, dude. Like, what the hell are you thinking? And so yeah, it was, up until then, artists were always drawing lightning to the way that they thought it would be, but never super accurate because, like, I mean, they didn't really have anything to go off of. It was just, like, you see it and then you, like, draw as well as you can.
Yeah,
but
that's,
like now,
that's like having a dream and then trying to explain it, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, like, you see lightning, you know it's there, but then, like, how do you actually... It's gone in literally a split second.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
trying to remember what it looked like, be like, oh, it's kind of like this.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's kinda
exactly. So now they, like, artists and people alike, they had something to look at. Like, they knew this is what lightning looks like, and so it was revolutionary. He died in 1882, and he kind of ended up being a forgotten name, but his work, yeah, I mean,
Well, not anymore.
well, that's true. But yeah, no, it was a turning point for photography and science. Yeah, and it was kind of just like a symbol of human curiosity. And he didn't have any fancy equipment. He just had patience, guts, and a deep interest to what the camera could do.
Honestly, I feel like that's all you need.
Exactly.
Those are words to live by.
Exactly. And Thomas Easterly did that. And with his mercury fumes and raw determination.
What a guy.
What a guy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I know, right? Yeah, I thought that was really fascinating.
That is a fascinating. I was so excited for you to talk about that. I knew that was one of your topics. I didn't know we were going to kick it off with that. That's so sick.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to go in order because 1847, but yeah. Isn't that wild? I had never heard of a daguerreotype before, but that's like...
I don't think I have either.
Yeah, but that's where photographs originated.
Huh.
Yeah.
Very cool. You learn something every day.
Exactly.
Especially on Today in Years Past.
Ah, there you go. All right, what you got?
Super cool. So we're going to jump to 1928. Mine are not in order.
Okay.
So at least I don't think they might actually. No, they're not. They're not in order.
All right.
But yeah, we're going to go to 1928. I'm going to talk about Amelia Earhart. She became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic as a passenger.
Yeah.
So she wasn't actually flying, but she was a passenger. She was the first woman to be carried across the Atlantic.
She wasn't the pilot?
She wasn't the pilot at this time.
Wait, okay, continue.
Yeah. So she was a pilot.
Okay.
She was known for flying, obviously. Like, she was a very well-known pilot. But for this flight in particular, she just wasn't the pilot. So there was two other people that were piloting this plane.
Huh. I always thought that... I mean, whenever you hear Amelia Earhart, you always think, like... I always imagine it was, like, a one-seater, small jet plane, and it was just her... And
oh, they didn't have jet planes back
okay,
then.
I don't know.
These were like massive engine planes and
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, it was in 1928, so like that technology just wasn't fully developed yet. Like planes were starting to take off.
Yeah.
Literally and figuratively.
But
so it was like a really good era for planes.
Yeah.
That's when they really started to really build up.
Wait, that's crazy because like you said 1928.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's almost, but it's like that's less than 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow. But like that happened within the last century. I mean, soon.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like my grandmother was born not too long after this flight took place.
Whoa. Yeah, she was born in like
38. Yeah.
Wow, she was 10.
No. She was
nope.
-10. But she was
yeah.
almost, like she was born around a time where like flight wasn't super common.
Yeah.
You know, flights like planes didn't really commercial flights at least didn't really take off until like the 50s. That's when they started being more introduced to the public, or at least the public started taking more of an interest in it.
Sure.
It was a lot easier to fly across the Atlantic than it was to take an ocean liner, which is what the main source of travel was at the time.
Wow, imagine just taking an ocean liner to like...
So the plane was piloted by Wilmer Stutz and Lou Gordon. The flight departed from Newfoundland, Canada, and landed in Barryport, Wales. And the flight took about 20 hours. And I thought this was kind of cool. The name of the plane was called the Friendship.
Aww.
And I thought that was pretty lovely.
Aww.
It was a Fokker F8.
Okay.
And I don't know much about the Fokker F8.
Okay.
Other than the name is very sketch. So air travel was not yet common around this time. One of the early international planes, or airliners, I guess I could say, companies was Pan American Airways. It began passenger services internationally in January of 1928 and was able to carry 15 passengers. Pan Am is no longer in business. They actually went bankrupt in 1991 due to the Gulf War. They ended up losing a lot of money. But it was very well established in the 80s.
Yeah.
And they flew to 87 countries at its peak in 1968. In 1991, when they went bankrupt, Delta Airlines actually acquired them.
Oh, sure.
So I just wanted to throw that little tidbit in there just to kind of really emphasize it.
Yeah.
Commercial planes weren't really that common. So like I was saying, this is like the golden age of planes. The first commercial flight occurred in January 1st, 1914, between St. Petersburg and Tampa, Florida, lasting about 30 minutes.
Wow.
The former mayor of St. Petersburg, Abram C. Feal, was the first paying passenger on
Really?
Yeah,
Aww.
he was the first paying passenger on a commercial flight.
Wow. I'm honestly surprised it didn't come out of North Carolina, being with the Wright brothers and all.
Yeah, I kind of thought that too, but it seems like they paved the way.
Yeah.
And then everybody was like, oh, we got to jump on this.
Yeah.
Like, you see that even today.
True,
like, when new technology comes out, everybody jumps out. Like, look at AI, for example. Like, that's what we're living in. And
yeah, that's
people are building off of that and making companies. And so I think it was kind of the same mentality.
Gotcha.
So this new technology comes out, and they just jump on the bandwagon. They're like,
Fair.
let's build this up. Let's see what we can do. And I just love that. I think that's so cool. A little bit more about some flights that have happened. So the very first successful transatlantic flight happened in June 14th, 1919 from Newfoundland, Canada to Ireland by British aviators Captain John Alcock and Lieutenant Arthur Whitten Brown. The very first solo flight over the Atlantic happened 1 year prior to Amelia's passenger flight by Charles Lindbergh flying from New York to Paris, France. So this
wow.
isn't the first time
Okay.
that people have flown across
Sure.
the Atlantic, but it is the first time a woman was flown across the Atlantic.
So how many years had passed before the first time anyone had flown and the first time she flew?
First time anyone has flown?
Anyone flew across the Atlantic? Like, how many years had it been since that happened?
Well, the first solo flight was in 1927, and she flew in 1928.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't that much longer.
No, it was literally 1 year.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Oh, shit. Okay.
but like I was saying, going back to the flight itself with Amelia, the flight lasted 20 hours. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And there's 3 people on board. Naturally, my first response is, how did they use the bathroom? Because this is new technology. They did not have bathrooms on
no.
these planes.
Right.
So I looked it up. And sadly, nothing came of it.
Oh.
But I did find some interesting things. Flights did not have restrooms back then, and so flights of this duration needed to improvise. There's no record of what happened to the crew on the Friendship for this kind of thing. However, it is recorded that during a solo flight, Charles Lindbergh, who I just talked about, who went over the Atlantic,
Yeah.
he opted to use a wicker chair with a funnel and an aluminum can for waste disposal
Oh my
while he was
God.
in flight. You got to do what you got to do.
A wicker chair.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
You can imagine how
Ugh.
just gross that is.
Oh, my God. What do you, like, throw it out the window? No, you can't even.
You can't. You're in a plane.
Oh, my God.
I mean, well, no, I can't
No,
imagine.
no.
I can't imagine he was open over the
No.
Atlantic. They do have planes where they're open, but I don't think this one was.
That's how I always imagined the plane to be like Amelia Earhart flew in.
Like an open one?
Yeah.
She probably did fly ones that were open, but in the videos that I saw of her, they were
Yeah.
closed cockpit.
Okay.
So the solution to the restroom things often were primitive due to lack of technology or needs
Fair.
during this time. So it's interesting to think about, like, when you get on a plane
Yeah.
and you have to use the restroom, you just go and use the restroom. You
Yeah.
don't think about,
No.
like, that technology had to be improvised.
Right.
Like, they had to figure out how to make that work.
Yeah. Even now, like,
You
whenever.
take that for granted.
No, totally. But even now, whenever I do use a bathroom when I'm on a plane, I'm just like, where does this go?
I do the same thing. It's
like the-
fascinating
The
stuff, honestly.
suction.
Just, yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of, it's
It
kind of insane.
disappears.
Amelia was originally promised to have time at the controls while she was doing the transatlantic flight. However, this didn't happen during the flight, but it did happen afterwards. So after they had landed, she did get to fly the plane during the final leg of the flight from Wales to Southampton, England. So she was, like, they kept their promise. She did fly,
Yeah.
but she just didn't fly across the Atlantic. Earhart's contribution during the flight, however, was to keep the flight log, which is a very important role. I made the assumption that a flight log was actually the same as a black box today. It's not.
What's a black box?
So a black box is typically used to figure out why a plane crashed, usually because there's no one alive. It's kind of dark, but that is what it's for, because there was a significant amount of planes crashing in the early 20th century, and they needed to figure out what was going on so they could fix the problem. And so they created a black box, which is basically a somewhat indestructible object that
Yeah.
can keep recordings. And so, like, it would survive fires, it would survive falls, that kind of thing. And so that's what a black box is. A flight log is used just to kind of jot down what the weather is, how the flight's going, any mechanical issues that they're
Yeah.
running into, and just kind of how the flight was in general.
Yeah.
And they still use it today, however, it's digital.
Gotcha.
Most of the time. I think they still do, like, paper logs, but it's very rare now.
I mean, it makes sense to digitize that because I feel like keeping a paper log would be
A lot.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Friendship flight resulted from a combination of factors, including the desire of Amy Phipps Guest to make the flight, Earhart's own piloting skills and ambition, and the publicist George Putnam. Which, fun fact, George Putnam and Amelia Earhart, they got married.
Aww.
Yeah, they ended up getting married. It's funny because George actually proposed to Amelia 6 different times before she finally said yes.
Oh my God. Wow. Wow.
Right? I just thought that was crazy. 6 times, and she finally said yes.
Oh my God.
He was really adamant about marrying this girl.
Oh my goodness.
They got married on February 7th, 1931.
Wow. Oh my God, 6 times.
So Amy Phipps Guest, later known as Mrs. Frederick Edward Guest, originally intended to make the flight herself. She owned the Fokker Trimotor, later named the Friendship, same plane.
Yeah.
And wanted to be the first woman to fly across the Atlantic. The Friendship was originally ordered by Richard E. Byrd for his Antarctic expedition, but was later purchased by Donald Woodward and leased to Amy for the transatlantic flight. So they were preparing for her to fly across the Atlantic. She was ready to go.
Oh, okay.
Earhart got involved when Amy Phipps Guest's family objected to her flying.
Yeah.
And eventually Amy realized, this is kind of dangerous. Maybe my family's right. Maybe I shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So she enlisted the help of Richard Byrd and George Putnam to find the right sort of girl to make the trip.
Oh my goodness.
Earhart was a well-known aviator at this time with a good public image and was chosen according to the National Air and Space Museum. Putnam's role was not important because I already went over it. So, yeah, George Putnam was basically the journalist.
Okay.
And he was getting the word out about Amelia and just kind of publicizing her name.
Yeah.
And he was helping her gain stardom in a way. Although she wasn't the pilot, her participation as the first woman to cross the Atlantic by air brought her significant fame and media attention.
Yeah.
This experience was a catalyst for her future aviation career and advocacy for women in aviation.
Yeah. Man, I can only imagine.
Yeah, that's got to be, that's a huge deal, obviously.
Definitely, yeah.
If you go to the henryford.org, you can actually see images of the Friendship, and you can see the crew before they take off and before and after photos of their trip.
Yeah, I mean, I will post that on Instagram.
Yeah, it's very cool.
That's so cool.
So yeah, she flew across the Atlantic. Yeah. She was the first woman to do that.
Oh my God. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
The videos I've seen of her, she seems like a very down-to-earth person. And she's very go-getter attitude.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the stuff that I read, she was very just driven to do the things that she wanted to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Honestly, it's people like that pave the way for future generations and women specifically. And it's just like the inspiration to like, you know what, just do it.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. Hell yeah.
That's all I got. So what you got?
All right. So this is crazy. Okay, so I did know about yours, but I didn't really put 2 and 2 together. But June 18th, 1983 was the first American woman to go to space.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I did see this story. Actually, I almost picked this story, but
I
know you picked it before I did. So
yeah. Oh my God, no.
Super cool story.
So
I didn't read it, but tell me about it.
So her name's Sally Ride.
Love that name, by the way.
I know, right? Like
that's a very fitting name.
I know. Whenever I was thinking, I was like, of course, I love that. Because like throughout it, I call her, Ride, and it's just like she rode to space, and it's just like, that's amazing. But yes, so she wasn't the first person in space or the first woman in space, but she was the first American woman in space. She was breaking boundaries for women in the field that had been completely dominated by men since pretty much the beginning of space travel. So back in the early days of NASA, astronauts were all pretty much military test pilots. And so I'm talking about more specifically like America and NASA and stuff. So yeah. I didn't do a whole lot of research beyond like America's space travel.
Like other countries? Or...
Yeah. I mean, like a little bit here and there, but most of what I'm going to talk about is in regards to NASA and America specific.
Okay.
But yeah, so they were mostly military test pilots, and those were basically specially trained pilots who flew new and modified military aircraft and see how they performed. And it was just kind of seeing the way that they would test things for speed and handling safety and just seeing the way that this new technology would work, especially going from like the military experience into space travel, I guess. But yeah, they were all pretty much men, and to be completely honest, they're all white men. And
yeah, it makes sense for the time.
Yeah,
it's just how it was.
No, totally, yeah. And in 1978, NASA opened things up and started recruiting scientists and engineers. And for the first time, they started including women and people of color into the astronaut program. And Sally Ride was one of those chosen. And she was a physicist, and she had already worked with NASA when she applied to be an astronaut. And out of 8,000 applicants, only 35 were selected.
Whoa.
Right?
What is that percentage?
I was just thinking that whenever I was saying it out loud, and I was like, I don't know, but very low.
What were the numbers again?
So it was 8,000 applicants and 35 people were selected. And then of that, only 6 of those 35 were women.
That's a 0.4% chance of getting in.
So wait, do it the other way around. So 8,000, so 6 of that.
You lost me. What?
Okay. so I was saying that out of the 35 people selected, 6 of them were women.
Oh, I got you. That is a 0.075% chance.
That's crazy.
Yeah, actually, it's a 0.075% chance of a woman getting selected in this grouping.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay,
Yeah.
and she still ended up getting picked.
Yeah.
Why did they pick her?
So she had a strong thank you for asking. She had a strong academic background in science, and she had the advanced degree. She went through the medical exams, physical tests, and she was just a really, really good candidate for that.
Well, kudos to NASA for seeing that and not just basing it on the gender.
No, exactly. Yeah, no, she was very qualified. She was a physicist, like I was saying. Pretty amazing. So yeah, now fast forward to 1983. Sally Ride was assigned to fly on the Challenger, which is NASA's newest shuttle of the time. And her job was a mission specialist, which basically helped operate the shuttle's robotic arm, the Canadarm. I think I'm saying that right.
Canadarm?
Canadarm.
Canadarm?
Yeah?
Something like that?
I don't know. I didn't look in.
That's totally fair. Well, she operated the mechanical arm on the space shuttle. That's pretty sick. So that's a lot of robotics. It's a lot of like physics.
Physicist.
Makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. Which was a huge deal at that time for satellite work. And so the mission itself was about 6 days long, and it launched from the Kennedy.
That's it?
Yeah, right?
Wow, I figured it would have been longer. Anytime you go in space, I feel like you're there for like months.
No.
At least.
Yeah, no. I think I don't know how long the first folks, how long they were in space for, but I don't think it was that long. I think after the first few missions happened, people were going into space for much longer.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know the specifics of that. But this one I know was only 6 days long. Because I think they only had like a very specific mission and they wanted to just do that. Oh, actually, no, I did the research. The longest mission to this point was 6 months.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, but to that point. Beyond that, I think people stayed longer. I mean, there was those 2 people recently that were in space for like a year and a half. Remember I was telling you about that?
Oh, yeah, well, they were stuck.
They were stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think they were in space for like a year or something like that.
We should look that up real quick.
Oh my gosh, I knew her name. And the guy as well.
Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore.
Yeah, they were in space for a while. I think it was like 100 and something days. I think it was like 139 or something like that. That might be something else from other research that I've done.
What's crazy is that they were only supposed to be there for 8.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Right.
Can you imagine, like...
No.
Just be... it's so hard to imagine. I can't even finish my sentence.
I can't even imagine going to space, let alone being stuck there.
Right, you're told, oh, you'll be there for about a week.
Yeah.
And we'll see you back on Earth. And then,
yeah,
like, almost a year goes by and you're still in space.
Right. But the thing is, like, with all of those missions, they're literally prepared for anything to happen. Like, with the ones that Sonny Williams and Butch, they didn't expect to be there for that long, but they had all the stuff to be able to survive out there for that long because they did. So yes, back to Sally Ride. On board, there were 5 astronauts, and they were all American. And it was actually the largest crew ever sent to space at that time. So
it was the largest crew?
Mm-hmm. 5 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she was one of the 5. So I guess...
A lot of firsts happening.
I know, right? Yeah. So that actually also happened on June 18th, so we got a little bonus. And what's really interesting, even though this was a huge milestone, Sally Ride herself wasn't interested in the spotlight. She was really focused on doing her job. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm the first American woman to go to space. It was just like, I want to go to do my job and, like, really think about, like, how does space travel work and like, the robotic arm physics and all of that.
Kind of provide her knowledge and expertise in it to kind of grow it into the future. So
Exactly.
she wasn't worried about being the first or even doing it. She just wanted to like improve it and be a part of that.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Right, exactly. Yeah, whenever there were interviews of her later, she didn't really think of herself as a pioneer. She was just someone that was trained and ready, and she was doing what she loved. But the media, my God, the media at that time, media now is ridiculous, but the media back then, they just could not get over the fact that she was a woman, and reporters were asking her ridiculous questions before the flight and even after.
Oh, probably really arrogant kind of questions, I'm sure.
Like whether the space would affect her reproductive system, or if she cried when things went wrong.
What?
Yeah.
That's so rude.
I know.
First of all, like, just because she's a woman doesn't mean that it's going to mess up her reproduction. Like, why aren't you going to ask that for a guy?
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's ridiculous. She handled it all with her strength, and she didn't snap back or storm off. She just answered, and she did her work, and she flew the mission like a pro.
Love it.
I know, right? Oh, I love it. But while she was in orbit, she helped deploy 2 communications satellites and ran experiments. Whenever the shuttle landed safely back on Earth, there was relief and excitement. Sally Ride had not only just done the job, she had opened the door for so many other women to follow, which is freaking amazing. And she didn't stop there. She flew another shuttle mission the next year, and she stayed involved with NASA long after that. She served on the committees that investigated disasters that happened later, which actually, crazy enough, one of those disasters, so the Challenger disaster and the Columbia disaster, and I don't know if you remember from earlier in the story, the Challenger was the flight or the shuttle aircraft that she flew on. And
spacecraft, right? The rocket.
Yeah. But yeah, that actually, it broke apart in 73 seconds after launch. And this was in 19...
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Was she on it?
No.
Okay.
No. She survived and everything, but...
The crew that was on that one, probably. I do remember this story, actually.
Really?
The Challenger? Yeah.
Yeah.
do. I remember hearing about it. I don't know a whole lot of details, but I do remember that being a big, significant time.
Yeah, so that was...
the story of that time.
Yeah. So that was in 1986. Yeah, so 73 seconds after the launch, there was a failure in the O-ring in the booster rocket, killing all 7 astronauts aboard.
Ooh.
Yeah, but that was the very same shuttle that she flew on years before.
Whoa,
yeah,
that's crazy.
So she was a part of, like, the investigative crew and, like, just, she was there on the board of committee.
That must have been really difficult to go through, to just kind of witness that, knowing that you were on that shuttle not that long ago.
Exactly, and that's what I was thinking too. I was just like, oh my God, like, I mean, because it really wasn't that far apart in, like, time, because that happened in 86, and this happened she flew on in 83, so it was only 3 years prior.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, that's terrifying.
So terrifying.
Is Sally Ride still alive?
No, actually. She's not. She passed away in 2012. It's crazy that you actually mentioned that, because I was going to say she passed away in 2012, but it became public after she had passed, because she was a very private person, so she didn't really want to have all that, especially with, like, all the interviews and everything. She was like, I want to keep my work and my personal life separate, which...
Good for her.
So much respect.
Yeah.
But it came out later that she was in a long-term relationship with a woman named Tam O'Shaughnessy.
Oh, wow.
And so she's always been recognized as the first known LGBTQ astronaut in space as well.
Oh my God.
I know, and it's Pride Month.
That's so cool, dude.
Right? Yeah.
Whoa. And way to turn the table around.
I know, right? I that was amazing. So she didn't just break that one barrier. She knocked down several, and she did it with her brains, her calm under pressure, and her deep love for science.
Beautiful.
I know. Isn't that amazing?
Said. That's a great story.
Yeah. I had no idea. But yeah, whenever I saw that last part, I was just like, on Pride. Oh, I love it.
That's perfect, too, to end it on Pride Month. Oh, that's lovely. That is so cool.
All right. What you got for me?
So, keeping the tradition of powerful women.
Okay, yes.
And it seems like what this episode is about.
Love that.
So... I want to talk about Susan B. Anthony.
Yes, girl.
Now, what happened on June 18th, 1873? Her trial started. Sorry, you were taking a drink of water. I could not help but laugh. That was really funny.
I had to take a sip of water.
I get it. So her trial started in 1873 on June 18th. And I don't really want to focus too much on the trial.
Sure.
But I want to focus on Susan B. Anthony as a person and kind of the events that led up to the trial and what happened afterwards.
Yeah, okay.
So, because I think this is a great story. And honestly, I didn't really know a whole lot about Susan B. Anthony. I did know that she was prominent in women's rights.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she is one of, if not the person that kind of brought women's rights to fruition into what it is now.
She was the first person to vote?
She was. No,
Okay.
Not the first person, but she
No,
was
sorry, first woman.
She was the first woman to vote.
Gotcha.
And she did it deliberately, knowing that it was illegal. And I want to get into that story.
Yes, okay.
So
Sorry, I'm jumping the gun. You go.
No, you're good. That's what this trial is about, and that happened in 1873. Susan B. Anthony was born February 15th, 1820 in Adams, Massachusetts, which is a very small town about 100 plus miles west of Boston. So it's basically on the exact opposite side of Massachusetts.
Okay. It's funny that you say that because, like, I was born in Massachusetts and
Yeah.
everyone always says, like, oh, it's near Boston. And it's, like, always, like, in regards to Boston. So
Everything, Massachusetts is Boston.
pretty much. Anyways.
So it's a small town. Population is roughly 8,000 people as of 2024, and it's been steadily kind of declining.
Gotcha.
But it's got a rich community.
Yeah.
Everybody's very tight-knit, and it's always been that way. Fun fact about Susan B. Anthony, her middle name is actually Brownell,
Oh.
but she didn't like it.
Oh.
So she went by B, which I think is kind of badass.
Yeah.
Because Susan B. Anthony just kind of rolls off the
it
tongue, and it
does.
sounds empowering.
It does.
So I just kind of like that.
Yeah.
I also said that the B stands for badass.
Love that.
Susan
Yes.
Badass Anthony.
Absolutely.
Her family shared a strong passion for social reform and would often support movements involving rights of others and social inequality. So they were a very politically active family. Her brothers Daniel and Merritt moved to Kansas to support the anti-slavery movement there. So this just kind of paints a
Wow.
picture of what this family was
Yeah.
like and the kind of environment that she grew up in.
Love that. That's amazing.
Her and her family moved to Rochester, New York in 1845, where she became heavily involved in the abolitionist movement. She switched her focus to women's rights when she was denied the right to speak at a temperance conference just because of her gender.
Oh my god.
So she basically went to this conference expecting to speak,
Wow.
and these men were like, no, disregard her, she's a woman.
Oh my
And
god.
clearly she got pissed, which rightfully so. That's a very bullshit move.
For sure. God, if I lived in that time, I would. Man.
Oh man, I can imagine. Since she grew up and was focused on organizing and speaking out against social injustice, she was very good at public speaking and maintaining a crowd. She ended up meeting a lady named Elizabeth Cady Stanton in 1851, and the two formed a lifelong partnership. The two of them together formed the National Women's Suffrage Association after the 15th Amendment was passed, which gave African American men the right to vote but still excluded women. So this was obviously very frustrating. Susan B. Anthony, nicknamed Napoleon of women's rights movement, was a prominent women's rights activist and leader of the suffrage movement. During the November 1872 presidential election between Ulysses S. Grant and Horace Greeley, Susan decided to take a rebellious action and one that shaped history for women across the U.S.
Ooh, what'd she do?
Her and a group of other women deliberately casted votes for the respected candidates and completely knowing that they were doing this illegally at the time.
Oh, so it was more than just her.
It was more than just her, and I would like to imagine that she basically grouped these women together, and they went to this polling area,
Yeah.
and there's all these men just sitting there talking about whatever was prominent at the time, their trousers or something. I don't know.
Baseball.
They're just looking at, oh, look at these plaid pants I got or
Yeah.
something. I don't know.
Ugh.
So they're just talking,
Yeah.
doing their own thing, and then she just kicks the door down, and then like 10 women just walk in and they just go right up to the pole.
Amazing. Yes. Oh my
That's what I
God.
like to imagine. Pretty badass.
Yep.
A poll watcher for the Democratic Party saw what was happening and filed a complaint against Anthony for casting an illegal vote, which after that she was
Wow.
arrested.
Wow. Like on the spot in the poll.
Yeah.
Wow. It's so unfathomable that that even happened.
I know. And it's so odd to think about now because like it's such a normal thing.
Yeah.
You know, we go about our lives.
Right.
And back then you really couldn't. You
No.
couldn't just do things that you can do now.
Certain people though, like I mean a certain group of people in America could, but a large chunk couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After the poll watcher complained about what she was doing,
Idiot.
she was promptly arrested. And there was a trial set for her, and that trial happened on today's date.
Wow. Wait, so were all of the women on that same trial, or was it just her?
I didn't find anything
Gotcha.
about other women. I just found Susan
That's fair. That's fair.
in here.
Yeah. That's crazy though. Like,
Oh, wait till you hear what happened.
oh my God, I feel like I'm not gonna like this.
You're not going to like it. It was really kind of
Yeah.
messed up.
Well, okay, but at the time, weren't jurors and judges and prosecutors, like, weren't they all just white men? So, like,
Yeah.
they were all probably going to be like, oh, we
Well-
all hate her. Like,
Pretty much, yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so it's like, I mean, odds are not really stacked in her favor here.
No, they're not. But, like, wait till you hear what the judge did.
Oh, God.
Like, this is crazy. Like, this would be
Oh, my God.
highly illegal in today's standards.
Okay, tell me. I'm going to hate this.
During the trial, the Judge Ward Hunt, instructed the jury to find her guilty, which completely bypassed their own deliberation. The jury was ready to give their own deliberation and kind
Yeah.
of look at the facts and determine if she was guilty or not. And the judge was like, no, she's guilty. She's a woman.
Oh, my God. The way I would jump that man. Oh, my God. Ugh.
Yeah, I thought you were going to hate that. And
I hate it. I
Yeah.
hate it so much. That's crazy. Like, so wait, did she, I mean, this is probably a stupid question, but like, did she have a lawyer or anything?
I'm sure she did. Some sort of public defender.
Sure.
I didn't go into a whole lot of detail
Okay.
about that
Fair.
in particular. She's a very smart woman, though. Like,
Yeah.
she did, you know, whatever she had to do to
Yeah.
get to the trial.
Sure.
And she even went back later and she petitioned to Congress to review the trial and excuse her of the fine because she was denied her right to trial by jury because of the judge's instructions,
Wow.
which he deliberately. So it sounds like this was kind of a law back then. Like, a judge couldn't just be like,
Wow.
hey, she's guilty,
Yeah.
and just disregard the jury.
Wow.
So this was a huge deal.
Yeah.
And
So did he get in trouble?
no, nothing happened.
Oh my God. In those instances, like even now, who goes against who keeps the judges on the moral standard of like, you know, you can't do these things or
Like even today.
yeah, like is it the Supreme Court justices? Are they the ones that are saying like, no, you judge over there, like you need to not make the power go to your head, kind of basically.
Yeah, I mean,
You see what I'm saying?
there's definitely judges out there that probably go a little into the gray area, or maybe even a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But yeah, that's a great question. I don't know.
I
There's
don't
got to be
either.
something that holds
Right.
them accountable. Like, they could lose their license. Like, they have to pass the bar exam, and I think
That's true,
you get
yeah.
what's called debarred or something like that. I watched
thought
Better
that
Call
was-
Saul. That's the only reference I have of like what judges are like. Well, he wasn't a judge.
He was a
though.
lawyer.
He was a lawyer,
Yeah.
which is like, how many tiers below is that? Like,
no
if you're a
idea.
lawyer, do you eventually become a judge if you stick with it?
I don't know.
I have so many questions. I
Me
should have looked
too.
all this up, but I
No
didn't.
worries, that's so fine.
Well, this is fun. You guys can answer us. So because of the judge's actions, the jury did ultimately find her guilty of the violation. She was fined $100
So what
in
is that?
1872.
Okay, what is that in today's? Do you know?
So $100 back then is equivalent to almost $3,000 today.
Oh my
Yeah.
God!
So that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
She never paid it.
Jeez.
She refused to pay it.
Good for her.
Yeah, and
Hell
she's
yeah.
famously known for not paying it.
Oh my God! So wait, did she go to jail for not paying it? Like, what happened?
I don't think so. It just seemed like nothing really happened, honestly.
Oh.
Like, I'm sure there was more that
Yeah.
went along with the story. Like, she was fined the $100. I'm sure they were like, oh, we're going to do this or whatever. And she was like, good,
Yeah.
do it. I dare
Man.
you.
The B really did stand for badass.
For real. When she petitioned to Congress, they didn't do anything. They didn't follow up. There was no action taken. And so Susan did the same thing by not paying anything. So,
Good.
yeah.
So did her, at the end of the day, do we know if her vote counted or not? Or do we
No, it definitely didn't.
Okay.
I'm sure it didn't.
Man. Yeah, they probably just went in there and they were like, oh, this is stained by the woman.
Pretty much.
Man.
I'm sure that's exactly what happened. And they probably threw a fit and they were like, we can't count any of these votes now because she tainted it. And
oh my God.
it's just ridiculous. Like, looking at it from today's perspective, it is just insane to me that was a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just cannot believe it.
No. Wow.
With her refusal to pay the fine and accompanied by her speech, she helped solidify the future of the women's rights movement.
Yeah, she broke barriers.
She did.
Revolutionized, like, just the way that...
Well, like I was saying, she is the reason
that
women's rights exist today and have been prominent and grow. You know, she sadly died before she got to see that come to fruition. She died on March 13th, 1906 from pneumonia. Women were granted the right to vote on August 18th, 1920, after the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified, which prohibited states from denying a person to vote based on their gender. It was 14 years after she died.
Wow. Oh, man. Well, I'm sure she knew that she was doing revolutionary things, especially like...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was constantly working towards making the world a better place, like with her family. Like, they knew what the right thing was.
Right, yeah.
And they wanted to fight for it, and they fought tirelessly to make it happen, and she won, ultimately.
Yeah, that's amazing. Man, just wonderful. I love powerful women.
Oh, for sure. This podcast is definitely about powerful women.
Yeah.
I don't think we didn't plan that either.
No. Oh, amazing.
The National American Women's Suffrage Movement later became known as the League of Women Voters and is still active today.
I don't think I've ever heard of that before.
I don't think I have either. Actually, I came across this for the first time while I was doing the research. I never heard about that, but apparently it's still pretty prominent.
Wow.
It's still a big thing. And because of Susan B. Anthony's actions, there were coins that were minted depicting Susan B. Anthony on them from 1979 to 1981.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We were talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
What coin was it? Was it the dollar? No.
It was.
It was?
Yeah, it was a $1 coin.
Wow. And you said it was up until what year?
Up until 1981, but they did it again in 1999 for about a year, I think.
Why do they only do it for a certain amount of time?
I don't know. They do that with a lot of coins.
Huh. I didn't know that.
I actually saw a story circulating fairly recently of someone who apparently paid with a Susan B. Anthony coin to get a coffee.
Yeah.
And that coin ended up at an auction and ended up selling for $890,000.
Whoa.
But I could not verify if this story was authentic.
Oh, okay.
And I kind of don't think it is.
I mean...
Because, it could be.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy if it was.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't verify it. I just can't see someone paying for a coffee with a $1 coin.
Yeah.
Who's carrying a $1 coin around to pay for something nowadays?
No idea. But I will say that that might be possible because there are
possible.
Yeah,
it's for sure possible.
There's coin collectors out there, and especially if there was some kind of error on it, like a misprint on the coin,
or if it was the very first minted one.
Yeah, things like that could make it more popular or
well,
worth more.
Look at the NFT craze. People
True.
are spending millions of dollars for pictures.
Right, yeah,
little images.
Yeah. It's the value
it's not out of the realm of possibility that someone almost paid $1 million for a coin. That makes more sense to me than a JPEG.
True. Fair, yeah. Wow.
And
oh my God.
I actually looked up how much Susan B. Anthony coins are, and they range from anywhere from a couple bucks, $300 to $22,000 on eBay.
Wow.
Yeah. Man. So she is renowned as a hero to the women's rights movement, and I applaud her bravery.
Yeah.
And just her badassery for just going straight to the polls and being like, I'm a woman, I don't care.
Hell yes. Oh, man. That's amazing. Wow, some powerful woman out here.
Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that really wasn't planned. All right. So my last story, not a woman, but it's still revolutionary in its own way, I guess. So
interesting.
I don't know how to put it.
I'm intrigued.
It is. It's different than the way, like, the things that we've been talking about. But anyways.
That's okay. My last topic is completely from left field.
Okay. All right. Cool. So my last one is June 18th, 2010. So
Ooh.
kind of recentish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
15 years.
Yeah. So Reed Stowe. Don't know if you know that name.
I don't.
Yeah, me neither. I didn't either. Okay, it's a little bit of a technicality, but I'm going to run with it because I really want to talk about it. But today on 2010, 15 years ago, was his first full day back on land. And I'll go into that. So let me tell you about one of the longest solo sea adventures in history.
In history?
In history.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
Yeah. So it ended on June 17th, 2010. And the next day, June 18th, was sailors Reed Stowe's first full day back on land. And after being at sea for, okay, I want you to guess. How many days do you think he was at sea for?
How many days?
How many days?
And this is the longest that anyone's been out to sea.
Guess.
I'm going to say 3 years. I don't know what that math is.
Wow, yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
No freaking way, dude. That's crazy.
You're pretty close. Okay, so it's 1,152 days.
Oh my God.
It's over 3 years without touching solid ground.
Dude, he must have felt weird.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
How did he survive for that long?
Yeah, I'll get into it.
What year was this again?
2010.
2010.
Yeah.
What was he doing?
Breaking boundaries.
This dude's crazy.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you're right. Yeah, so it was just over 3 years. I think it was like 3.5-ish. I don't know, math. But yeah, there were no port visits, no resupply, no stopping, just Reed, his sailboat, and the ocean.
No way.
Yeah.
This story's ridiculous.
Yeah, right?
So what was he eating? He was just fishing the whole time?
I'd get into it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just so excited. Like, this just sounds so wild to me.
It's crazy. So it wasn't an accident or any survival story or anything like that. It was something that he'd planned. He called it the 1,000 Days at Sea voyage. His goal was to sail nonstop around the world for nearly 3 years, longer than anyone had ever done before. And yeah, most people thought he was nuts. But Reed Stowe was no rookie to this. He was a lifelong sailor, artist, and kind of a free spirit, as we can imagine.
Okay, that makes sense.
His boat, named Anne, actually this is really cute. He named his boat after his mom.
Oh,
I know.
How lovely.
Yeah, it was a 70-foot schooner.
I've heard of that.
I have not.
I don't know what that means, but I have heard of that.
You know, I didn't do very much research into that, but that's what it was.
I will look it up.
Okay, well, I'll keep talking. But he built it himself, and it was a little bit rough. It was not fancy. He didn't have any sponsorships or big companies or anything like that. He didn't have any sponsorship ads on his boat, but it was solid. He stocked it with supplies, solar panels, tools, and art materials. He built it in a little over 18 months in North Carolina, of all places.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Let's go.
Yeah, he used a unique hull construction, steel wire mesh coated in a resin grout, and he harvested hurricane-felled tropical hardwoods to make his boat.
Seems like a reasonable material to make a boat out of.
For sure, yeah.
Also, I looked up schooner, and it's just a specific type of sailboat.
Okay.
So, having 2 or more masts, with the main mast typically taller than the foremast. The term schooner also refers to a large glass. That is... All right, AI's letting me down. Basically,
right.
It's a sailboat.
Gotcha. The first part was helpful. But his schooner, I'm glad you actually looked that up. It was 70 feet long with a 16-foot beam, and it weighed around 60 tons.
Wow.
Right?
Okay, this is a big boat.
Yeah. But yeah, he wanted to prove that the human could live in total isolation at sea and not just survive, but create, reflect, and keep going without ever pulling into a port. So yeah.
So this was just a big science experiment for this guy.
I mean,
like he just wanted to see what would happen. Did he document this? Like, did he film himself? Oh, he wouldn't be able to.
No. I mean, he wanted to
I
go.
guess if he had like solar power, I guess you could do it. But
yeah, but that was more so to just like keep in touch with his family and stuff. But like
so he was able to keep in touch with his family.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And also for like GPS tracking and like knowing where he was, which actually I'll get into that later.
Whoa.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't just sail around.
Yeah.
Dude, that's nuts.
I know, right? Yeah.
So you said he was, like, he's been a sailor for a long time. So he's used to the ocean. He's used to being out in sea and stuff like that.
Yeah, he had experience before this.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
God, can you imagine your first time like sailing and it was 1,000 days long?
I wouldn't last more than like maybe a couple hours. That would scare me way too much.
God, I'd be so scared. So the voyage started on April 21st, 2007, when he left Hoboken, New Jersey. Which, okay, while I was doing this, the 2008 recession was pretty much happening while he was at sea. Like, he came back post-recession. He left pre-recession and came back post-recession.
So he completely missed it.
Totally.
Wow.
He was on the ocean.
That seems like a good way to miss it.
Yeah.
So he had no idea that even happened.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, like, he was in contact with his family. I don't know, like, I'm sure phone calls and texts and stuff like that, but, like...
If they never talked about it, though, he'd never know.
Right? Yeah, no, it was like oh my gosh, I think it was an island of people that found out about COVID, like, a couple months after the world kind of shut down. Have you heard of that?
No.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, that was crazy. I don't know all the facts of it, so I won't really say much about it, but... Basically, there was an island or a cruise ship or something, and it was like the whole point of it was to like disconnect from the world and like kind of have their like isolation. Huh. And this was like, I think 2019 or something like that. And then it went on for a certain amount of time, and then whenever COVID happened and everything, they came back to society and like. It was a global pandemic and they had no idea.
Holy crap.
Yeah. I don't know very much more about that, but I remember hearing a story. I know.
Maybe it happened on a Wednesday. And
Maybe
we can talk about it.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, anyways. So he didn't actually start this journey alone. He started with his girlfriend, Sonia Ahmed. And this was for the first stretch of it. And she lasted about 300 days. But she had to leave due to person's seasickness. And it turned out she was actually pregnant.
Oh. Well, I know what was happening on this boat.
No. Oh. So Reed dropped her.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine.
That's so funny.
I know. Okay.
But damn, like, good for him.
Yeah.
Like, good for both of them.
I get
it. I'm assuming they're still together.
No.
Oh, no.
No, it's okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll get into it.
That would have been such a cool story.
Yeah. Oh, anyways. So Reed dropped her off without docking, and he kept sailing solo for the rest of the journey. For over 850 days, it was just him. And a little bit about her. So she, well, not her specifically, but like in terms of this, because I was like, man, if we were on this boat together and if I had gotten pregnant and you were like, oh, I'm going to keep sailing, I would have been like, oh, that sucks. But she was really supportive, and she was the one who urged him to carry on with it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
I'm shocked that they're not still together.
Yeah, I mean, they never really got married. They were just dating.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
But I think they stayed cordial and like...
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she was the one who really urged him to carry on his 1,000 Days at Sea mission, and it was his life work, and they both agreed that him completing the record-breaking voyage was more important than interrupting it.
That's very supportive. I love that.
Yeah, super supportive. Great woman. But yeah, so they never married, but they remained a long-distance couple. And then I looked a little bit into it afterwards, and they never married after that. And I think he ended up marrying someone else, but I'm not totally sure. I'm pretty sure he's in his 70s now. He's still alive. And so is she. Yeah. But I think they always stayed cordial, and they just remained friends. But...
So wait, if he's 70 now, he was in his late 50s, maybe 60 when this happened?
Yeah, that's math, yeah.
They had a kid?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I think there was an age gap between them.
Oh. The story just keeps getting crazier.
Yeah, I don't know exactly the age gap.
I'm more invested in their relationship than their boat at this point.
Yeah, I think there was like a 20-year age gap or something like that.
Holy crap, dude.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Maybe
okay,
30.
I mean...
Yeah. I mean, age is but a number. So anyways, he spent his days sailing, fixing things, meditating, making art, and writing. And he documented everything, taking photos and sending updates via satellite when he could. And for the most part, he truly was alone through storms, equipment failures, and even injuries. But yeah, so he started his journey at Hoboken. He steered down south to the Atlantic, but before rounding Africa and traced a deliberate heart-shaped loop in the South Atlantic off of Brazil and Argentina. So he literally, like, have you ever seen those things where people are running and they like track their run and you can like see like a thing that they've ran and it looks like a giraffe or whatever?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that was kind of big. I want to say in like the mid 2000s or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So he did that in the ocean across the Atlantic and he drew a heart with his boat.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I know. Yeah.
Also, really impressive
to
be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah. So then after that, he passed the Cape of Good Hope in December, crossed the Indian Ocean, where Sonia Ahmed was disembarked off the Rottnest Island, Australia, on day 306. And then he pressed on eastwards across the Pacific and then back through the Atlantic for a final sail up the Hudson to New York on June 17th, 2010. And the reason that he put the heart in there, it was a symbol of love and hope, and he named this voyage the Love Voyage.
Full circle.
I know, and he named it that because he wanted to inspire the world.
Wow, this seems like a great guy. I really love this story. This is really, really cool.
I know, isn't it so cute?
Yeah.
Yeah. But he planned his trip by studying global winds and storm patterns, drawing big loops through the trade wind belts, and steering clear of known hurricane zones on a world map. I can't even imagine flying or sailing through a hurricane on a freaking boat.
No, I cannot.
Yeah.
Two of my worst fears.
No. But yeah, he did all this through a GPS tracking on his position. And the wild part is, there was literally, he had no safety net, no escort boat, no resupply, no quick way out. And if something went wrong, it was just him. That's it.
Did they go into detail about anything that went wrong? Like, what kind of things did he run into? You said he dealt with personal injuries and stuff, too.
I think they were, like, minor for the most part, but nothing big. Yeah.
Still, though.
Yeah, no, totally.
That's pretty scary. You're the only one out there. No one's going to help you.
No.
The nearest hospital is way away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You were asking before about the food, and he packed roughly 6 tons of imperishable? Thank you. Imperishable staples like rice, pasta, beans, lentils, tomato sauce, pesto, olives, peanut butter, dried fruits and nuts, chocolate, spices, and about 90 kilograms of Parmesan cheese and a bunch of Indian spice seasonings.
Oh, very fun.
Spices, yeah. He supplemented this with fresh sprouts that he grew on the boat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Super cool. So he had his own garden.
Yeah, he had a greenhouse. And
cool.
he salted and dried fish that he caught along the way. And a lot of people doubted that he'd make it. And some people said that he'd be irresponsible, but he kept going and he did it. And so, yeah, after 1,152 days at sea, the Anne sailed back up the Hudson River towards New York, and crowds gathered at the waterfront. Reporters, friends, and strangers came to watch him return. And that was the first time in over 3 years, I'm literally in goosebumps, that he stepped on solid ground. Like, can you imagine? Like,
wow.
I would have felt wobbly as hell.
Right? You ever like jump on a trampoline for a really long time and then you go to walk on the ground and you're just like, whoa.
Yeah. You can still feel it.
Like you forget how your legs move all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I'd imagine that's what he felt like when he first started walking around on solid ground.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That is a great story, dude.
Yeah. But June 18th was his first full day back on land, and I'm sure it felt wild. And he met his son for the first time with Sonia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So his son must have been, what, 2? Mm-hmm. Or a year and a half at
2?
least?
Yeah. Whoa. He was 2 years old. Yeah, he was born whenever he was at sea. Yeah. But yeah, so he later turned his journey into books, lectures, and artwork. And obviously he didn't become a household name, but he is remembered as someone who pushed the limits of solo ocean travel all the ways physically, mentally, and emotionally. And not only is it just, June 18th being the day he walked on land, he had returned from a world that almost no one had really seen. not just a remote part of the planet, but a deep personal space that most of us will never visit. And he made it back.
Wow.
I
And he
know.
proved people wrong, too.
Yeah,
The fact that
exactly.
nobody believed, well, not nobody, but a lot of people believed that he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm going to do it. And he
Yeah,
did it.
yeah.
That's incredible. This is
Yeah.
a great, I love these stories. These are
I
great
know.
stories.
It's so uplifting. It's just like, it's really pushing the boundaries of what people can do and like people proving others wrong and saying like, no, I'm going to do this no matter what people say.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful. But
Beautiful stuff.
yeah. Okay. Take us home.
Okay. So, you know how in the middle of the podcast I said I was going to come out of left field?
Yes.
This is very left field. This is a movie
Okay.
that premiered today in 2001. The Fast and Furious. I was pretty excited when I saw that.
Honestly, I just think of every time that you do something that's like remotely even slightly quick, he always looks at me and says, "You ever seen Fast and Furious?"
Yep.
And then like takes a grocery cart like around a corner or something like that.
I'm always doing little things like that. So it's just like a little inside joke
I
that me and
love that.
Sarika have.
Oh.
And so I was really excited to bring this up. So it premiered today.
So the first one?
2001. Yeah, the very first one.
Okay.
Arguably the best one because they got real weird after that. Tokyo Drift was okay.
I think
Too
I've-
Fast, Too Furious was also okay.
I
They're
think
pretty mid movies, honestly.
I think I've only seen the first one.
Oh, you have seen it?
I think so. A long time
Oh.
ago. I think.
I honestly did not think you had seen it. So I was going to
well,
give a whole synopsis of the movie.
I mean, please do, because I don't remember.
Oh, I will.
Okay.
So, yeah, it premiered today
'Kay.
at the Man Village Theater and was released 4 days later on June 22nd.
Okay.
So I'm just talking about the premiere. I got excited.
for
So,
sure.
Quick synopsis of the film. So I'm going to say, spoiler alert, in case anybody has not seen this movie and really wants to see it, but honestly, it's been 24 years. So if you wanted to see it, you should have done it by now.
Yeah. To the day.
To the day. So, here is the story. Brian O'Connor, played by the late Paul Walker, rest in peace, is an LAPD officer that is tasked with infiltrating an underground street racing scene to investigate numerous truck hijackings and thefts of high-end electronics. While undercover as a young, ambitious street racer, Brian gets deeply involved in the street racing community and meets Dominic Toretto, who is played by Vin Diesel. Dominic, or Dom, is suspected of being behind the truck hijackings, and Brian quickly becomes friends with him. Complications arise between civic duties and personal interests when Brian starts a romantic relationship with Dom's sister Mia, who is played by Jordana Brewster.
Ooh.
Brian suspects that a rival gang is the ones that are behind the hijackings, mainly because he's so entangled with Dom, his family, and his close friends that he chooses to believe they are not responsible. But evidence comes out that Dom's crew is responsible, and Brian is now torn in a situation where he needs to choose over his career or his friendship with Dom.
Dun dun dun.
Brian is forced to reveal that he is a cop during a heist with Dom and the crew, and it goes wrong, and Dom decides to flee, in which Brian and Dom have their last race.
Oh.
Dom ends up crashing his Dodge Challenger, and Brian decides to let him go by offering his keys to his own car to repay a debt to him. And then they live happily ever after to make 10 more sequels and end up racing in space or some shit, because the movie franchise just got crazy with this
Yeah.
story. So,
Wow.
what was that? That's the whole movie in under 2 minutes.
Bonkers. Holy crap.
That's basically the gist of it.
Okay.
So if you haven't seen the movie, you should go see it. It's an okay movie. But
Really selling it.
yeah. But I was
Wow.
more interested in the fact of like how the movie came to be, because it's
Okay.
like it's around the time that street racing actually was kind of hyped
Yeah.
up.
Uh-huh.
So it's a pretty interesting story.
Interesting. It's crazy with that storyline that there were 10 sequels after that.
Yeah.
Like,
there was at least 10. There might be 11. I saw 10, but
whew,
there may be more.
oh my God. Are they still making those? Like, are there any more in
I
the
saw
works?
that they stopped. They said all great things must come to an end, and they stopped at Fast X, I think it was called. They dropped the Furious, by the way. They just called it Fast after a while.
Wow. After how many did they drop the Furious?
I don't know. I
Oh
just
my
know
God.
that the last one was Fast X, and they literally are in space.
Of course. That was gonna be my next question. Did they actually go to space?
They actually did go to space.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God. It's crazy because I feel like so many people say that, like, The third one is like whenever it starts going downhill, they were like, all right, hold my beer. let's keep
this going. Like, let's put them in space.
Oh my God.
Let's have them ride dinosaurs.
Wait, so like, how long did this series go on for? So it started in 2001.
Started in 2001. I think the last movie was May 19th, 2023. That's when it came out.
Wow.
So that's
the last one.
22 years that these movies were going. And there was 10.
Crazy. Yeah.
So that's...
once every 2-ish years.
Yeah.
Man.
Pretty wild.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
So the origins behind the movie actually started from a magazine. The whole movie idea started with a 1998 Vibe magazine article called Racer X by Ken Lee.
Wow, Ken, you really started a legacy here.
You really started something. The article profiled New York City's underground street racing scene, highlighting high-stake races, imported cars, and the tight-knit, secretive culture behind it. Producer Neil H. Moritz read the article and saw cinematic potential: fast cars, young culture, danger, and loyalty. And he thought it had all the ingredients for a great hit.
Yeah.
Universal Pictures acquired the rights to the article and used it as a seed for what would now become Fast and Furious franchise.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy. I knew that the, underground racing scene, I remember hearing about that, but I didn't realize that it was, that popular. Or not popular, so to speak, because it's underground, but regardless, wow.
Wow is right. No, it was pretty cool. And I remember the early 2000s, 2002, 2003 specifically. Underground street racing was kind of big around that time. I remember I was big into video games. I was big into racing games in particular. And Need for Speed Underground, I think, came out around the same time. And I remember Underground 2 also coming out around the same time. And that fit the same culture where you were customizing cars and racing.
Right.
And there was this, tight-knit culture kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
They're probably already on their second movie at that time.
Probably, yeah.
2003.
Well, I mean, even the Need for Speed franchise,
yeah,
they went with that too. They realized the young gaming, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I was going to say whippersnapper.
The young whippersnappers were into racing games, and they just, I don't know, they saw potential in that, and they just kept going with it. They made a lot of money.
Yeah.
The gaming industry and the movie industry made a lot of money off of this.
Shoot.
So in the late 90s, early 2000s, that was around the boom of the customization and import racing, especially in Southern California, where it kind of took off. But it was also big in New York, so it was on the East and West Coast of the United States. Studios were looking to reach a younger audience with modern action stories, especially ones centered around diverse casts and counterculture communities. The success of movies like Point Break, which featured Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves in 1991.
I don't think I know that one.
Oh, really? It's a great movie. Yeah, we should watch it sometime.
Cool.
Keanu Reeves is one of my favorite actors. The success of movies like Point Break was actually a major influence, showed that there was an appetite for action thrillers with undercover cop angles and emotional stakes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that covers it.
Yeah, actually, they borrowed heavily from Point Break's script.
Really?
Yeah, there's an undercover cop. I have it written down, actually.
Were they allowed? Did they ask, or were they allowed to do that? Or
yeah, you can borrow things from different scripts.
But would you have to ask permission from the director or producer?
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they have to, or maybe they don't.
I mean, but that that's the case with music, so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, that's true. But yeah, they borrowed the script heavily from Point Break, the 1991 version. They did end up making a remake, and I think it followed the same premise. There's an undercover cop, joins a tight-knit crew. He's torn between duty and newfound loyalty, and there's a charismatic leader. So Dom, in this case, is the charismatic leader, where Bodhi was the charismatic leader in Point Break. Director Rob Cohen was chosen to direct. He had directed the movie The Skulls, which also starred Paul Walker. And he had an eye for sleek visuals and kinetic action, perfect for a movie about cars. And what I really liked about Cohen, actually, is he did actual research. He attended actual street races in LA, met with actual racers, and insisted that the movie feel grounded in the real subculture.
Yeah. I think that's so important for people that are creating these movies to completely get immersed in the culture or whatever it is that they're trying to depict, to do the best that they can to depict it properly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I
Kudos.
appreciate that about movies when they
Yeah.
actually make it feel real.
Yeah,
and they make
yeah.
it authentic to what it's supposed to be depicting.
I mean, that immersive experience makes all the difference.
So the cast came together. Paul Walker was already working with Rob Cohen on The Skulls, and Cohen pitched the idea to him personally, which Paul Walker really liked Cohen, and he was like, yeah, I'll do it. Vin Diesel was relatively unknown at the time. He had done Saving Private Ryan in an indie short, but he wasn't really known yet. This movie actually ended up being his breakout point. This is what made him a household name.
Wow.
Universal Studios actually wasn't sure about him. They originally wanted someone more established, but Cohen actually fought for him and got him in the movie.
That's amazing.
Michelle Rodriguez, who played Dom's girlfriend, Letty Ortiz, had just come off a movie called Girl Fight, and she brought toughness and edge.
Hell yeah.
And Jordana Brewster had a young, intelligent vibe, which was perfect for Mia. And Ja Rule was cast as Edwin, which was a fairly minor role. And the movie did pretty well. It was kind of modest in theaters, but afterwards it made a pretty decent amount of money. Like a lot of people knew about this movie, and obviously it took off. Like you know the name.
Yeah.
A lot of people know the name.
Everyone knows the name.
Yeah. Ja Rule actually ended up not returning phone calls to be cast into the sequel and turned down $500,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He just got too big to even care.
Oh my goodness.
So he was like, I don't want to be a part of this movie, and just didn't return any phone calls.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
So basically, he just got too big to be bothered with a sequel of this movie because he was in such a minor role. And I guess he just didn't care.
I mean, but like, looking back now, hindsight's 2020, but like, I'm sure he would have built into like getting that role to be bigger, especially being in the first movie, and I feel like that would have grown.
Well, yeah, I think he made a mistake because they
Yeah.
ended up hiring Ludacris, and he got pretty big off of it. And actually, Ludacris at the time
Really?
was touring with Eminem, I believe.
Wow. Oh, so was Ludacris like not household name, but like was he as famous as he is today back then?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think he was quite as big as he was until he was in these movies. I think he did a couple other small movies. He was doing, obviously, his music, and he was also doing film. And Fast and Furious is one of those films that just kind of like put him in the spotlight. Now you see him on State Farm commercials. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, you do.
The cast was intentionally diverse, which was pretty progressive for 2001, and it helped resonate globally.
Yeah.
The movie actually ended up doing really good because it was honestly perfect timing. The car modification industry was peaking. The movie itself was decent. It was grounded enough to feel real, flashy enough to be exciting. Nobody expected it to blow up the way that it did. It actually blew up mostly by open mouth because when it opened in the box office, it didn't really do that well.
Huh.
It did decently, but it didn't do as well as they were expecting.
So like, but if it didn't do so well as they were expecting it to do in the box office, then like, how did word of mouth get it to be as popular as it is today?
People took a chance, got the movie, watched it. Because like that's how I didn't know it came out in theaters. I heard about it because a friend of mine was like, yo, you gotta watch this movie. It's about cars. It's so cool. And so me being, a teenage boy, I'm obsessed with cars.
Yeah.
So
and, I mean, you are right. Like, I think the timing of it really, really helped.
Yeah.
Like, it was kind of...
for sure did. Especially for the young audiences.
Yeah. And like the turn of the century, and it was like new and exciting. And yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So the budget was $38 million. It went on to make over $200 million.
Whoa.
They would later create several sequels totaling $7 billion.
Holy shit. No wonder they made so many.
They just kept going.
They were like, let's see how long we can make this go. Man.
Yeah. So, a little bonus trivia for you.
Okay.
Most of the stunts used practical effects. CGI was actually minimal in this movie.
Whoa.
So they were actually driving the cars. However, they weren't driving as fast as they're depicted to be driving. They were driving like maybe 5-10 miles an hour. Like they weren't going very fast, but they made the effect look like they were going fast. But a lot of the stunts and things that were done were actually done. It wasn't CGI.
Wow. Actually, that makes sense with the driving like slow, but it looks fast. So
yeah,
a little backstory, a little tangent too.
Okay.
So whenever I think I was like 18, I got my a speeding ticket, and it was a So I was.
You were driving Fast and Furious.
Have you ever seen Fast and Furious?
Watch me get a speeding ticket.
So I was driving 30 in a 15, but I thought it was 20.
Ooh, you were going twice the speed limit.
Okay, but I didn't know. Okay, to be fair, it was
a very Alexis response.
But to be fair, the what is it? The speed limit sign was covered by a tree, so not my fault. But anyways, since I was so young, I was able to get it expunged from my record, and so they said that you could just take a class, and then you can just go on your merry way, and it won't be on your record, and so it's not. And so I took that class, and during that class there was a driving portion of it, and they were having us go and go around all these cones and stuff, but we really weren't going that fast. Oh, we were wearing what is it, the alcohol glasses where it makes it look like you are impaired. So I know it was a speeding.
What? Wait a second.
I think it was covering a couple bases because there were a lot of people there, but they had you wear alcohol glasses to make it feel like you were drunk to kind of scare you away from actually.
Okay, let me hold on. This makes no sense.
No, I know.
You get a speeding ticket. They make you take a driving class, and then they purposefully put goggles on you to make it look like you're drunk.
Yep. Because
you got a speeding ticket by accident.
Yeah.
Not even going that fast technically.
No.
A 30 and a 15, that is obviously you're double the speed limit,
sure.
But it's not that fast.
I thought it was 20.
You're still speeding, babe.
Okay, well. Or maybe I thought it was 25. I don't know. It was a long time ago. But regardless.
Still, yeah.
Whenever we were going around the cones, I remember feeling like we were going so fast, but we never hit 20 miles per hour.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
That was the moral of the story here. I can see that being the case.
Sarika Merchant. Too fast, too furious. Let's go. Racing around cones.
My goodness. Fast and Furious 11.
Man, they might release that. You never know.
No, please, no. It's too many.
The black 1970 Dodge Charger, driven by Dom, became one of the most iconic cars in the movie history. Mm-hmm. And fun fact, the Roku screensaver? Mm-hmm. You know how it has the little cars that drive by?
Yeah.
One of those cars is actually a nod to that iconic Dodge Charger.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you see the little black car with the little thing coming out of the hood? That's a Dodge Charger. It's a nod to Fast and Furious.
Is that... Gosh, I don't know what it's called, but whenever the cars are lifted.
Oh, this one, it's not lifted. It's it's got a higher back end, I guess. Maybe?
Yeah.
It's like a hot rod.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So next time you're watching Roku TV and the screensaver pops on, look for the little Dodge Charger.
Oh my God.
And then you can think of this podcast.
Little I Spy.
Yeah.
Love that.
That's all I've got.
All right. Thank you for tuning in again. My name is Sarika.
My name is Michael. And if you want to follow us or if you want to talk to us in any way, you can reach us at
yearspastpodcast@gmail.com.
Or if you have Instagram, you can reach us at
Today in Years Past.
All right. It's been Today in Years Past. Thank you guys so much for listening. We hope to see you in the next one.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.